can think that there are in a number of situations that I read about and hear about and so forth, that if there had been some loving going on, the kind of loving that we're going to study about, that some of the things that events, occurrences, abuse, so forth, would not happen. So, I welcome you to our study of love, recognizing that God is love, as 1 John tells us. I want to call to your attention. Let me say a word of appreciation to Buddy for the opportunity to co-teach with him. And we'll be looking at the categories of love from Daniel Day Williams' book, from both the theological and the psychological viewpoint. Sometimes those will be in contrast. Sometimes they will be quite analogous, kind of like maybe two sides of the same coin. I want to call to your attention that of all the kinds of methods and ways that God had when he decided to do something to save us, and that was God's purpose. When God sat down, as it were, and said, I've got to choose how I'm going to do this. And there were a number of options open to God, I think. He could have done some things which were powerful. He could have done some things which would have been in control. He could have done some things to solve all sorts of different problems by using his power to do it. But let me call to your attention that when we are talking about love, we're talking about God's choice of how he was going to save us. And his purpose, of course, is our salvation. Keystone, cornerstone in Scripture for our study is John 3:16 and 17. Variously quoted translations, but for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. And that's the cornerstone of our study. We'll be looking, of course, at these categories from Daniel Day Williams' book. And those of you who have kept into the book and recognize what I call, the book is kind of heavy. And I think that what we have done, what I've intended to do, is to choose these 5 categories because they help us to understand the way that God loves us. And let me say that as we look at the way that God has loved us, as we think about it in terms of our human relationships from the psychological and social standpoint, we're always going to be looking back at and saying, this is how we describe love, but the test is this the way that God has loved us? So we're always going to be going back and doing that kind of comparison. Let me, for those of you who may not know me, let me give you a little bit of a biographical sketch, if you will. I preached my first sermon at the First Christian Church in Spearman, Texas, on December the 8th, 1946. So I've been preaching for almost 73 years. Preached at Spirit, Texas, my first congregation. At Nash, Oklahoma, where I was during seminary. At Mangum, Oklahoma for just a short time. At Duncan, Oklahoma for 10 years. At the First Christian Church in Ponca City for 20 years. And then concluded my ministry at the First Christian Church in Neosho, Missouri. So I've been preaching a long time, and a little bit later on I want to give you what I'm calling my pillars of my faith. Let me give you some other information that I want to share with you. I celebrated my 94th birthday last Saturday. And, you know, I don't know how you're supposed to act when you're 94. I've got to figure that out. Also, some of you know, but some of you do not know, that my wife, Beth, died 7 weeks ago this past Monday. So I'm still, if you will, I'm still in the grieving process. And some of the things that I say, maybe you will want to put against that background, because she was a real helpmeet to me through my ministry, and I miss her very, very much. We were married lacking 8 days of 72 years, so just that bit of biographical information. I want to share with you Paul's description of love from 1 Corinthians 13. And because it's a little bit different, I want to read it from the Phillips translation. If I speak with the eloquence of men and of angels, but have no love, I become no more than blaring brass or crashing cymbal. If I have the gift of foretelling the future, and hold in my mind not only all human knowledge, but the very secrets of God, and if I had also that absolute faith which can move mountains, but have no love, I amount to nothing at all. If I dispose of all that I possess, even if I give my own body to be burned, but have no love, I achieve precisely nothing. This love of which I speak is slow to lose patience. It looks for a way of being constructive. It is not possessive. It is neither anxious to impress, nor does it cherish inflated ideas of its own importance. Love has good manners and does not pursue selfish advantage. Love is not touchy. It does not keep account of evil or gloat over the wickedness of other people. On the contrary, it is glad with all good men when truth prevails. Love knows no limit to its endurance, no end to its trust, no fading of its hope. It can outlast anything. It is, in fact, the one thing that still stands when all else has fallen. For if there are prophecies, they will be fulfilled and done with. If there are tongues, the need for them will disappear. If there is knowledge, it will be swallowed up in truth. For our knowledge is always incomplete, and our prophecy is always incomplete. And when the complete comes, that is the end of the incomplete. When I was a little child, I talked and felt and thought like a little child. Now that I am a man, my childish speech and feeling and thought have no further significance for me. At present, we are men looking at puzzling reflections in a mirror. The time will come when we shall see reality, whole and face to face. At present, all I know is a little fraction of the truth. But the time will come when I shall know it as fully as God now knows me. In this life, we have three great lasting qualities: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of them is love. That's one of the finest definitions and explanations of love. I want to begin with prayer, but I want to do something different with you. Some of you know that the Lord's Prayer has come to have a special meaning to me because in the latter days when Beth was sick, we would pray the Lord's Prayer together. And we got to the place where she could not remember it. So what I would do, I would say it, and she would repeat it after me. And we did that time after time, night after night again. So with that in mind, what I'd like for you to do with me is to pray the Lord's Prayer by letting me say a phrase and you repeating it after me, echoing. Okay? I know you know it, and we're going to use the term debts and debtors. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be done.
On earth. As it is in heaven.
As it is in heaven.
Give us this day.
Give us this day
our daily bread.
our daily bread.
And forgive us our debts.
And forgive us our debts.
As we forgive our debtors.
As we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation.
And lead us not into temptation.
But deliver us from evil.
But deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
For thine is the kingdom.
And the power.
And the power.
And the glory.
And the glory.
Forever.
Forever.
Amen.
Amen.
I hope you find new meaning in the Lord's Prayer, because I think it is there to be found, however you choose to do it. We're going to, I take my biographical sketch. Let me turn it over to Buddy and share with us what you'd like for us to hear. There. On?
You're on.
Okay. As far as work and career, I finished my doctoral studies at the University of Oklahoma. I had an invitation from a psychiatrist here in Enid at the time, Dr. Frank Adelman, who was above all else a good man. I joined his practice when I was 27, and he became my mentor for the next 20 years when he retired. And then I went into practice by myself, and he closed my practice full time at the end of 2016. I think it's really important that you know that I think that you are very fortunate people. Not meaning that you get to listen to me. You're fortunate people in that I once said to Bill, once I really read this chapter and began to apply it to psychology, I thought, you know, if somebody had taught me this when I was 27, I would have been a whole lot better therapist. Because it's going to go down through the very insides of love. And I'm going to stress that in terms of human love. I'm not going to leave God out of it, but I am going to talk mostly about people and relationships. After about 5 years of being in practice, I could tell that in terms of me seeing families and couples, that something was really missing. That I was missing the boat. So I went back to school and eventually became licensed as a marriage and family therapist. Of course, updating to today, that would probably be called a couple and family therapist, since there are all sorts of relationships. And what that added to my knowledge was the relationship those two people are having, and what trips up some of those relationships, and then what you can do about it, perhaps, even though tripped up. It also told me why some just aren't going to make it. Obviously, those people didn't realize that at the time they got married, or they wouldn't have gotten married, or they wouldn't have been living together, or whatever. But those two people should have been the two other people. That has been my effort throughout the next many years. When I closed my office in 16, I've been practicing 42 years. Last year when I was 72, I thought, well, that's kind of neat, 27. The two names that you see on the whiteboard, and anybody can look this up on the internet and get lots more information that I may give in one class here. Robert Sternberg is a psychologist and primarily a therapist. He has written books, he has taught as a professor, but he's done a lot of work just on the ground, face to face, as a therapist. He brought to us a pretty user-friendly term, the triangle of love, which I discussed some in the very first class. But I encourage you to look up these two names. John Gottman, it's kind of up here, you know, Stanford, Yale, Columbia, that kind of person who's a professor of human development. And although he has done therapy, he primarily is a teacher. And has brought up a lot of budding new therapists. The parts of his massive work that I would bring here is that Gottman said, if you want to kill a relationship, let me show you how to do it. I mean, if you want to kill it, let me show you how you do it. And he also said that there are fixes for that, but usually the person doesn't want to change. And the word change becomes a big word in all this. Because most of us in a relationship are going to go through changes. And hopefully most of those are learning experiences that, don't wound you. But all I'm going to ask you to do is raise your hand. So it's not personal. Don't be afraid. Be brave. How many people in this room would say that they have experienced love? They have felt love. My goodness. My goodness. Okay. Now, let's make it a little more complicated. I love my wife. I love my husband. And by the way, I love my dog. I love my cat. I love this country. I love my horse. Are all those loves the same kind of feeling?
No.
So either the term love may be quite complex, or we've got a whole lot of people using the wrong word. But it's not uncommon to hear any of those that I just mentioned. So think about what you have loved from early to today. Now you will get the most out of these classes from me if, as we go through the triangulation, killing relationships, offering change, it's tempting to think about the other person. I want you to think about yourself. When you've been loving someone or something, kind of, what was the context of that? About how old were you? What do you think happened to you as you fell in love with your dog? And I'm not really making fun of that. I mean, there were people that would throw things at me if I said you're not really in love with your dog. Because they know they are. But I want you to do a certain amount of what the therapists would call introspection. I want you to look at yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody if you don't want to. Certainly I'm not going to ask you to share it. But that's the work that you have to do between classes. And you have to be brave. One of the pillars, using that term, one of the pillars of a good relationship is honesty. So you have to be very honest with yourself. And this is mostly about a good thing. How many of you, and we're talking about relationships, human relationships, how many of you know in your heart that you have been in love more than once? Okay. Quite a few. Thank you. Was the first time like the second? Was the second like the third? Or the fourth? That happens. Was it the same, or was it, if it was different, how was it different? That's that self-search. You go back to the first one, and maybe to the second, or to the third or fourth. I don't think there's a quota on being loved, so that's okay. I will try to help flesh all this out, but I've just given you kind of broad outline. I do want to say one thing. Willa Jo and I had talked just before the class, and she was right when she said, you know, when you read this, it's a little daunting, this material. And maybe I should have a PhD in philosophy or theology or something. No, you don't need it. You would need a PhD in philosophy or theology if you wanted to write it. You don't need it to read it. All you need to do is read it more than once. And certain paragraphs you may go back to 3 or 4 times. Just kind of sorting it through. And once you've read it once and you've got the context of it, it's easier to go back to those individual paragraphs and focus on that one a little longer than some of the other. You know, so give yourself a break. I looked up on my phone dictionary 4 different words that I had never heard before. You know, and understanding what those words meant helped me, but I mean, it's just being persistent, not feeling down, not afraid to ask questions. Okay? Good. All right. Sir, I hand the gavel back to you.
I want to make a suggestion to you. First let me do a disclaimer. The book that from which we're going to study, this is one man's viewpoint of love. I'm not diminishing its value, but it is one person, and there are a number of books, a plethora of books on love. And all of them, I think, would have some different kind of approach. So when we study this, remember, this is one man's opinion, and you do not have to believe what he says. Same way with what I'm saying. I would feel that you're not being right with me if you say, well, if you say it, I'll believe it. I don't want you to do that. What I'd like to do is to make some suggestions so that you wrestle with some important questions for you. We're going to look particularly at the Gospels as biblical references. And I want to suggest to you something of a new kind of insight with you. In the first chapter of Genesis, Genesis 1, it says in terms of creation, Moses writes, "Let us make man in our image." Notice the plural pronoun. Let us make man in our image. Ever wonder who else was there?
The Holy
Who
Trinity.
is that our?
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Let me just hang your hat on that for just a moment. That in the first chapter of Genesis, there's a co-creator, if you will. Move with me then to the first John 1, where John writes in his gospel, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God." What the word wisdom. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things that have been made were made through him. Talking about the Word as Jesus. Is John giving us, I think he is, John giving us a clue as to the co-creator. So, just imagine, if you will, hold it for a minute, that we are talking about God and Jesus Christ as being co-creators. Taking that as a premise, let me invite you to look at the teachings and the sermons of Jesus that are in the four Gospels from this vantage point. That what Jesus is saying to us is, now I'm going to get, I created you. I helped create you. And I know how you are put together. I know how you are put together physically. I know how you're put together emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I know all the components of your life because I helped to create you. Now, what I'm going to do as I teach you and as I preach, I'm going to give you clues as to how best to live life. And I'm doing this from a particular vantage point. I'm doing this from having been your creator. So I absolutely know what is best for you. And if you will listen to what I'm going to say to you and hear it from that standpoint, I'm going to tell you some things about your life. That if you start down a certain road, that it's a treadmill and you'll never get anywhere. I'm going to talk about some things that if you try to do them, you're going to fail. They're going to be counterproductive. Like having two primary values in your life. Because Jesus knew that if you try to do two things as primary in your life, you wind up being a spiritual schizophrenic. So he talks about a sense of integrity, if you will. I want you to have a oneness with God. And that's the healthiest thing that you can do, because that's the way we have put you together. So this is I invite you, as you read the Gospels from now on, particularly the teachings, and listen to them, to remember that this is the Jesus who is the co-creator of us. And that everything that he tells us is going to help us align with the love of God. Now, I believe that's a different kind of perspective for you. And I don't ask you to accept it, but I ask you to think about it. Does it make sense that Jesus would give us, in every instance, truth, no untruth, nothing false, nothing unworthy, nothing that would be against our nature? Everything will be for the goodness of you and your relationship with God. Now that may cause you, I hope it does cause you, to look at and hear the words of Jesus in the Gospels from a new vantage point. The co-creator of you and me is telling us how to live life. And if we will do that, we will have a holistic kind of life, one in which our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual will be all together, because he wants us to have that kind of integrity in our life. Now, I want to share with you in the time we have, I want to share with you what I'm calling for me are my pillars of faith. After 73 years of preaching, trying to think what is the most important thing in my religion. And I want to pursue that with you. The first one, my first pillar of faith, is the John 3:16 and 17. Especially with the emphasis upon the second one. I try never to quote John 3:16 alone, so that people hear that it was not Jesus' purpose to come into the world and condemn us, but that Jesus' purpose is to save us. And so all of the words that he gives to us are in terms of our salvation. I want to save you. The second one, the second pillar is John 10:18, where Jesus is the Good Shepherd passage. And Jesus says, "No one takes my life from me, but I lay it down of my own accord." This has to do, if you will, whether God is in control or not. Did God make Jesus do what he did? Or if you hear this scripture, I have the power to choose. Let me tell you an event that happened while Beth was ill. We had a person who came, had a t-shirt on. And the t-shirt had on the front of it the picture of a llama, not a camel, but a llama. And the words on it were Prob-Llama. And below that was the words, "No, God is in control." Well, she wore that enough times, and I was bothered enough that I finally said, "Do you believe what's on your t-shirt?" And she said, "Well, yes, I do." God is in control. And my question to her was, when the man shot from the motel or hotel room and killed 69 people in Las Vegas, was God in control? And she stopped and she said, no, oh no, God wouldn't do that. And I said, let me suggest to you this way of thinking about God. God allows what God does not will. God allows what God does not will. And that this is true for your life as well as it is for everybody's life. God is not in control of you. You can do things, as we have all, perhaps all sinners, that are against the will of God. And we have the power to do that. We can, as it were, defeat God temporarily. So, God is not in control. Does God have a plan? He may have a plan, but it's not a predestined plan. Because if you put predestination in there, you talk about control, God controlling. So, I'm talking about a sense of personal responsibility on our part. If I do something wrong, I do not say, God made me do it because He's in control. God allows me to do, and that was true for Jesus. And what is true for Jesus is also true for you and me. So, and this is, to me, this is very, very important. That if we cause harm to someone, God is not in control. I did it, and I must take the responsibility for it. You see, that's the flip side of that coin. If God is not in control, then I am in control, and I become responsible. And I am responsible for what I do and what I think. God has given me the power to defeat Him in whatever way you want to apply that to you. The next pillar is John 14:9. And it is where Jesus says, anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. I hear lots of people talking about God doing this, God doing that. And if I'm familiar enough with them and close enough so that I trust the relationship, I will say, I know that you think God did that. Do you think Jesus would do that? And that's the reason I say I choose the Scripture. Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. And so Jesus becomes for us the revelation as fully as it can be embodied in human being. Jesus becomes our way of seeing God. And the test of what God will do is always to be held up against the measure of Jesus. The next pillar is from Matthew 16:25. Whoever would save his life he'll lose it. And whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. It's one of those sayings of Jesus that doesn't sound right. You know, I need to save my life. And Jesus says, no, that's not the way you're put together. So the question of, back to the question of, is Jesus telling us the truth as we can understand it and appropriate it for our lives? And that's a yes. The other pillar, if you will, has to do with John 14. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe in me. In my Father's abiding place, there are many abiding places. I know the King James Version says, in my Father's house there are many mansions. But when you go back to the Greek, as we really need to do in some cases, there's not any emphasis on any kind of material building, anything like that. The emphasis is, when I die, I'm going to be with and in the presence of God and Jesus Christ. In my Father's abiding place, there are many abiding places. I invite you to begin working on your own pillars of faith. What is it that you most believe of Jesus' teachings? What's critical to you? If you had to choose 3 verses out of the scripture that are most important to you, that you really believe in, what are they? That may cause you to do some additional introspection, to borrow Buddy's word, some spiritual wrestling with, but I encourage you to do that. Questions? Next Wednesday evening.
Thing before we talk about next week.
All right, thank you.
This is not meant to embarrass somebody, but I never even thought that I would be fortunate enough to have that table back there, to have young people, because teenagers fall in love, just like somebody in their 20s or 30s. Sometimes people fall in love for the first time when they're 68. You know, but to have you all as some reference, I probably will ask some questions, not personally, just your thoughts. I think older folks need to hear.
Did you point to me?
Oh, no, I'm but thank you for this. Homework. I want you to think the first time that you would say, I'm in love. And kind of what age and what was circumstances around that. If you fell in love more than once, about how old were you? little bit of the circumstance around that feeling coming up in you. Could be a third or a fourth time. Now, I'm not ever gonna ask any of you to talk about that. The homework is, you think about the first time, and how old were you, and kind of what was going on around you at that time. And the second time, the third time. And was the second time different from the first? In what way was it different than the first? So, that's homework. I would ask you to do it. I will never have you stand up and say to you, tell me all about it. Tell us all about it. It's personal homework. Okay? It'd be nice if I turned it on.
Yes, it would.
Can you cover that again?
Gotta get on the bag. Maybe my voice was just loud enough.
I want to give you an assignment for next Sunday, next Wednesday. And Val,
Hand up.
yes, Kenny?
But,
Yes,
when you introduced what you were going to say early on, you said your difference would be you're going to talk about human relationships. Would not the whole Bible in its entirety be about human relationships?
Good morning question.
We can cover that for your homework next week.
No, back away. If you choose to think of it this way, the life of Jesus the Christ, in that life there are so many things for us to learn about having relationships with the person next door. It is a grounding piece of work, the life of Jesus the Christ, to understand how you might go about having a relationship